Unraveling the Mystery, Understanding the American Airlines Flight 191 Crash. As American Airlines Flight 191 rolled down the runway for takeoff, the left engine and pylon separated from and went over the left wing. As the engine assembly separated, it caused damage in the area of the wing where it had been attached. The damage included rupturing in the hydraulic lines to the outboard leading edge slats in the left wing. Following the engine separation, and as the airplane climbed away from the runway, the pilot assumed that an engine had failed, and he input rudder to counteract the yaw from the resulting asymmetric thrust. The airplane seemed to climb away normally and accelerated to 171 knots. Just after liftoff, the leading edge slats on the left wing, no longer locked in an extended position by hydraulic pressure, began to retract. Also at this time, as American Airlines procedures called for a climb at V2, the pilot flying began a slow deceleration toward V2. The depiction of the aerodynamic lift curve represents the area on the curve and the resultant lift, or CL, and angle of attack when flying at V2. Note that the scheduled V2 was well below the angle of attack where wing stall occurs. In normal 1G flight, a deceleration or reduction in airspeed would result in an increase of lift, or CL increases, and a corresponding increase in the angle of attack until the wing stalls. The slats and flaps are extended for takeoff and landing to in part allow lower stall speeds, and thereby allow lower flight speeds and shorter takeoff or landing distances. On Flight 191, when the outboard wing slats retracted, the wing was reconfigured such that the effective stall speed for the wing was increased. On the lift curve, this means that the wing stalls at a lower CL and angle of attack. This was significant for Flight 191 in that the increased stall speed was now above the scheduled V2. The lift required by the wing to fly at V2 was greater than the lift it was capable of generating with the slats retracted. The result was a left wing stall at a speed above V2 and a loss of control. Under normal circumstances, the wings, being identically and symmetrically configured, each generate roughly half the lift required by the airplane. The lift generated offsets the airplane weight, and during a climb, the generated lift is greater than the weight of the airplane. When the slats retracted on the left wing, it then became incapable of generating the same lift increment as the properly configured right wing. This lift asymmetry resulted in a roll to the left that was initially countered by an aileron input. Not shown here are roll spoilers that also would have extended on the right wing to increase the roll power. The pilot would have made roll control inputs to raise the left wing back to level. The aileron deflections shown here are consistent with that intent. Finally, as the airplane was decelerated to the stall speed for the left wing, the roll caused by the lift asymmetry overpowered the control authority of the airplane, and an uncontrollable left roll resulted. The investigation. Within days of the crash, the Federal Aviation Administration ordered other carriers to inspect their DC-10s, focusing on the area where the engine attaches to the wing. Ernie Gigliotti was one of the night shift mechanics United Airlines tapped at O'Hare. As he did the inspection, "I just had the feeling there was something not right," said Gigliotti, 71, who retired in 2002 and lives in Pittsburgh. He pushed on the engine nose and felt it move side to side rather than up and down, and heard an unusual metallic noise. He and his partner removed more panels and found obvious damage, fractures and bolts with the heads sheared off. When American and Continental Airlines also found damage to their DC-10s during the ordered inspections, the FAA grounded the DC-10 fleet on June 6, 12 days after the crash. The National Transportation Safety Board traced Flight 191's damage to American's decision to ignore McDonnell Douglas's instructions during a maintenance procedure that required removing the engine and the pylon connecting it to the wing. The DC-10's manual instructed workers to take off the heavier engine before detaching the pylon. But removing the engine and pylon as a unit saved about 200 man-hours per aircraft, according to the NTSB. That equals money, said Anthony Brickhouse, Associate Professor of Aerospace and Occupational Safety at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. And that's the battle you constantly fight in safety. It's safety versus money. American also decided to use a forklift, which wasn't precise enough to remove and reattach the engine without risking damage, the NTSB said. But if damage during a maintenance check at American's facility in Tulsa, Oklahoma, 2 months earlier explained why the engine came off, it didn't fully explain why pilots lost control. According to the NTSB, hydraulic lines that powered other critical systems were severed when the engine and pylon broke away, leaving the aircraft unusually vulnerable to a stall and disabling warning systems. The NTSB said it wasn't reasonable to expect Flight 191's captain, Walter Lux, and First Officer James Dillard to have recognized what was wrong with the aircraft in time to prevent a crash. The significance of the American Airlines Flight 191 crash lies in its profound impact on aviation safety awareness, regulatory reform, and the enduring lessons learned to prevent future tragedies within the industry.